pick a conservative value that you think Boris Johnson is a really good example of. There you go. So you can choose your own values. What is Boris Johnson a really good example of? Which conservative value does his conduct in public and in private most endorse and enforce? That's my problem. I can't think of one. Angela is in Worcester. Angela, can you?
I don't know that I can, but
so how can they all love him then if he does? If we can't between us think of a single conservative value he represents, and yet he's streets ahead in the polling.
Does it matter anymore that anybody represents a value about their party, or I think it's more to do with who best gets the message that the party agrees this is what we want to get across.
So what is the message Johnson gets across?
Well, spewing out what conservatism is.
Well, we've just kind of acknowledged together we can't think of a single example of conservatism that he represents.
I know, but for some reason, you will take notice when he's talking. I mean, I was calling to make a point that I probably don't agree with you, because
I haven't expressed an opinion. So which bit don't you agree with? Of all the things I've said that Boris Johnson does, which bit isn't true?
I just think...
So you rang in to defend him. You rang in to defend Boris Johnson.
Hang on. James, you said you wouldn't bite heads off. You said you would not
biting it. You think this is a head-biting mood? This is stroking and cosseting and cuddling, Angela. But you carry on defending the man who you can't think of a single conservative value that he represents.
No, I'm not defending him. I just think society in general, people are divorcing. People cheat. So from that point of view, I don't think it's something people consider or think about when they're voting for someone, Yes,
but they pretend to care.
Work.
They pretend to care when someone they already don't like does it. And that's true of everyone. That's true left, right and centre. Because you pretend to care about certain types of behaviour when someone you already don't like does it, and then when somebody you do like does it, you just sort of look the other way and hope that nobody notices.
I suppose that's true.
Yeah,
that is true.
It is.
That is true, but I don't know. I don't know if you want to call that defending him, but I just feel
I call it massive hypocrisy.
Focus on the work. Focus on his record at work. I mean, the personal things.
40 million quid. 40 million quid on the Garden Bridge, the ludicrous Dangle Way that I think only he has ever travelled on. You've got this F business that he has reported and has not denied saying in the context of Brexit discussions. So, what would you point to as evidence of his qualities as a politician?
That falling short of those things, and then pit them against what conservatism is. But the personal stuff about marriage breakdown and cheating and all that, I mean, people identify with that. It's happening every day in life.
You can't keep coming back to that, because I've offered up an opportunity to name one conservative value that he upholds and represents. One thing he's done is in his entire career...
I think small businesses would be in favour of him.
Say that again?
I think small businesses would be in favour of him, do you not think?
But he said F business. Mm-hmm. He's expressed his views on business. That was reported about 3 months ago.
I missed that one.
Well, now you know. And most businesses, not all, but most businesses are terrified by the prospect of a no-deal Brexit that some believe his leadership of the Conservative Party would increase the likelihood of. So, look, I don't want to be too late for the break. Can I give you one more chance, in the spirit of warmth and welcome, one more chance to name a quality or an achievement that could be loosely described as evidence of Boris Johnson's conservatism and or competence?
And then to the break.
And you rang in to defend him?
I didn't ring in to defend him,
Well,
Dave.
that's what it sounded like. Yeah, go on.
I just rang in to say, if you focus too much on the personal thing, like his marriage breakdown and...
I just gave you an opportunity to ignore that. I literally said, forget about the love children.
I'm trying to arm you with things to attack him on.
I don't want to attack him. I don't want to attack him. I'm just listing facts of things that he's done and saying. As an interested observer, this seems to me to be at odds with everything I understand conservatism to be. So how can people who consider themselves to be conservatives not see what is in front of their eyes?
Been wound up a little bit by some of the things you say. I'm not a terribly Boris fan.
Have I said anything wrong, do you think?
No, you're entitled to your view.
No. I haven't expressed a view. I've just listed.
Oh, yes, you have. Yeah, you're very one-sided, very, very partisan.
So what have I said that Boris Johnson hasn't done? What have I said?
Well, you say you haven't expressed a view. I mean, your approach is to try and persuade us that here's a man who should be unelectable for a party you don't support.
Oh no, I think the Telegraph have got it right today, or the Times. No, it's Matthew Dancona writing today, former editor of the Sunday Telegraph, saying that Boris Johnson taking over leadership of the Conservative Party would be the best possible outcome for Jeremy Corbyn. But that's the next chapter. Hang on a minute.
Given your political persuasion, you should be in favour of his election then.
No, I don't like Jeremy Corbyn either, Greg. You see, this is the problem when you think that you're addressing my opinions, which I haven't offered up yet. So what have I said about Boris Johnson this morning that isn't true? Has he cheated on all of his wives?
Well, listen, you don't have to go through it all again. I'm not questioning whether or not you've made statements of fact.
So, well, I am. Have I?
As opposed to opinion. No, I just think you're.
But have I said anything that's not true?
Well, I didn't ring up to say that you had. Why do you ask me that question?
Because you said that somehow I've said something that's unfair.
Did I ring up to accuse you of being a liar? I didn't.
So everything I've said is true?
Well, let's start from the standpoint that it is. It isn't the reason I rang. The reason I rang
so what's wound you up then, Greg?
What's wound me up is it's so nakedly apparent that your real approach here is not your moral outrage.
So what have I said that's not true?
Well, I didn't ring up to accuse you of saying something's not true.
This is why you're my perfect caller, because I've said lots of things about Boris Johnson that are true, and you are doing what I think is proverbially known as getting wound up by the messenger. So why is it his actions that I get upset about, but what you get upset about is me telling you what his actions are? Is that what it feels like?
I get wound up by the sham of your pretense of moral outrage, when what you really want to do is to persuade me that the election of Boris would be bad, whereas in reality, like so many other people, the Tories are looking forward to, many Tories are looking forward to Boris being leader, because
that's the whole point. That's the whole point of this phone-in. Yes, exactly. That's
Don't you understand? He's electable.
Yes,
you know the history. You know the history of Winston Churchill.
This is what I keep saying. He is electable, but he's also a serial liar, an adulterer. He's lost 40 million quid's worth of public money for the Garden Bridge
we've heard all
in
this.
London. He's had children. Well, because I want to know how that tallies with traditional conservatism.
You're not a traditional conservative. Why are you defending them?
Oh, Greg, I'll try again. I'll try again. What is it about Boris Johnson that encourages and allows people like you to turn off your moral compass and not care about all of the lies?
Hang on, who's turned off? Whoa, that's a nasty accusation. I've turned off my moral compass. Where do you get that from?
Well, do you care about family values? Do you care about honesty? Do you care about integrity? Do you care about economic competence? Do you care about marriage? Do you care about fidelity? Do you care about... all of these things. Usually conservatives do. That's all I'm saying, mate. I'm sorry if I'm misrepresenting you.
Did I say I'm a conservative? I never said I was.
Well, what are you getting wound up by then?
Because it's your attempt, like so many other people, to discredit Boris.
No, you see, I'm just listing things he's done, Greg. I'm just listing things he's done. And I wish we could get a little bit further into your own personal psychology, but you seem a little bit obsessed by mine. I don't have a view on this. I've said myself that I have voted for Boris Johnson in the past. I fell for it. And I guess if I was still falling for it, then I'd be keen to shoot the messenger as well. But how can conservatives turn off the concern that they supposedly and historically have for all of the things that Boris Johnson is the antithesis of? Economic competence, honesty, integrity, fidelity, family values, ethics, decency, and consistency. That's the bit I don't get. And I think Greg's right, for the record. I think the answer is, it doesn't matter, James. He can win as an election. But that's quite ugly, isn't it, in a moral context?